Hey, I'm Rochelle. I'm the beauty and the comedic relief.
And I'm Bridget, the brains of the operation.
Come with us across Alberta where we show you some of the best people and places.
There might be some mess-ups and dumb jokes along the way, but we promise it'll be a lot of fun.
Hello everyone! We're
Welcome
GP!
back to Grande Prairie! Woo! We're in Grande Prairie. We're here for the week. Today we are going to a bunch of places, but we are starting off at the Grant Berg Gallery. So, let's go see some artwork, learn some cool things. Yeah. Woo! Let's go. Welcome back. We are here today with a very special guest, so I will let him do the honors of introducing himself.
Hi, I'm Grant Berg. Welcome to Grande Prairie. I am an artist. I'm an art gallery owner and proud citizen of Grande Prairie.
Thank you so much. And so today we are at the Grant Berg Gallery, as you can see, with the beautiful artwork behind us, which we will get into later on. But to start, we will talk a bit about you and when you started making your art. Maybe let's start there.
Well, I've been making art since, like any kid, since I was quite little. It was great. My parents were very encouraging of me, my brother and sister to create art. Going back, we used to draw cartoon characters, and the Edmonton Sun at one point had a comics, and we would do that, and Mom every week would send in our stack of things for the cover, and we never ever did get in it. But I do have some of my brother's paintings in here, and he still does that animation style of work. And my sister's a graphic designer, so we're still all involved in the creative industries. My grandma, we also grew up very close to her, and so she was Cree Métis, and everything that she did was creative. That's just how they lived. They made a lot of their own clothing, and a lot of their own income was made by some of their creations by taking them to the farmer's market and selling them. So I would help my grandma growing up, and so that's just something that we were raised with, is creative expression.
And how do you think that has helped you develop throughout your life? Because I know there's often not a, I can't think of the right word that I'm looking for, but I think a lot of times people are either raised creatively or they are raised very like study, books, like intellectually, I guess.
Yeah, we were creative and had a lot of fun with it. And it's interesting because I look back, and at one point I actually stopped doing all art, and it was I'd actually submitted something to a previous employer at the recommendation of some coworkers. They said, "Hey Grant, this would be great if you could do this." So I did this project and was quite proud of it and took it to the boss, and he literally laughed at me. And so I did nothing for about 4, 5, 6 years, like nothing. It got me. And then as time went on, I realized that he was just trying to be funny and failed miserably. But at the same time, he didn't know what I was trying to do. And I find that now, as I'm older, a lot of people that criticize art don't understand what the artist is trying to do. And that's not to blame the viewer or even the artist. There just needs to be better communication between the two. And so once I realized that person that had criticized and literally laughed at the project didn't understand me and what we were going for, I actually dismissed his laughter and actually really got creative. It basically had been pent up, and so I hit the ground running with it and found immediate success.
That's amazing. And I think it's wonderful that you were able to see that the whole reason for his reaction to your art had been that he hadn't understood.
Yeah.
Because I think it'd be easy to kind of write it off as like, oh, you know, like he said this mean thing and now I'm never going to do it again. But
yeah, and I was still in my early 20s, and so at that point, criticism, especially around something creative, can dig deep. But as I matured and learned more about the world and a greater understanding about people, it was easy to set that aside.
Absolutely. And so in regards to your art, what mediums do you use?
A little bit of everything. The thing that I'm most known for is stone sculpture. And but with that, I'm working on a number of public sculptures. I have two here in Grande Prairie. One is powder-coated stainless steel on a giant rock. Another one is just stainless steel, and I'm actively working on 3 more right now. One will be stone and stainless steel, one will be glass, and another one aircraft aluminum.
Wow.
So with each, I get approached to honor somebody or something. And so I listen to the story, and then whatever materials best tell that story is what I come up with. And then from there, it's finding the right fabricators to work in each respective medium. So in some cases, like with these larger projects, it's partly about exploration for me, but also about best telling the story.
And what would you say, or how would you say you found that stone sculpture was like your medium to use?
Well, for me, again, doing a lot of drawing and different things growing up. I actually did a lot of wood sculpture when I was young too, and had some fun with that. But with the stone sculpture primarily, what had happened is we had moved out to an acreage, and it was 5 acres. It was the family's land, and it was 100% cow pasture. So it was grass. So we fenced it off, and I always love a beautiful landscape. So I couldn't afford to go and buy brick or anything like that to do the yard. So my father-in-law and all of his brothers for decades had collected all of the stones off of that land and piled them up along the fence lines. And so each day, each evening, each weekend, I would take my truck and pick the rocks and just throw them in, and then I would sort them when I got back up to the house. So some would be flat, and that would turn into a patio, and some were quite spectacular, so they would go into embankments around the house. And if they were just a plain old rock, they wound up as pond liners. So I used every rock that we had. And then once I'd finished some of those jobs, I redid the front of our house in cultured stone. So I had all the tools again to shape the stone to fit together. And once I had done the entire front of the house in stone, then I decided that I would just find some of those rocks that were around the farm and start shaping them. And so I was shaping them, and I was showing other sculptors, and one in particular actually pointed out that, Grant, you don't need to use these farm rocks. Sculptors from around the world have been using certain stones for thousands of years. And she gave me one. And as soon as I cut into that and when it was finished, I knew that I had finally found my creative outlet. When it comes to painting, there's some spectacular, highly talented artists in here. And there is no way that my drawings and paintings can compete with any of these. But for sculpture, it just seemed that that was my aptitude. I could see that. And I joke all the time about a landscape painting. I can't take a mountain scene that's 5 or 6 miles deep and make it flat. My brain doesn't do that. But it can see that in a different form 3-dimensionally. And so I recreate it 3-dimensionally.
Wow. That's amazing. The amount of, I have so much respect for artists, as we were speaking about prior to the interview starting, but just the technique and the talent that I think you, and the patience and the, I can't think of the word, but the like major focus and precision, that's the word I'm looking for. And the precision you would have to be able to complete that is just amazing.
Well, it's funny that you bring up focus, because I think once you've tapped into that stream that you connect with, focus becomes irrelevant, because to me, focus is something that you have to work to. But when I'm sculpting and I'm shaping, there's an excitement there that you want to get to the next stage and you want to get it done. And so the focus is actually just natural and just energy that comes out. So it's not that you're drawing from anything, it's you're running. And again, no different than when you read a great book and you can't put it down. There's that energy. You're connecting with that particular art or artist, and so you run with that energy. But if it's a textbook and you're slogging through it, that requires focus.
Absolutely. Have you ever had a project that you've had to work on that maybe did require focus, or even maybe a project that, maybe not even a project, maybe have you ever been in like an artistic slump where it's getting to the point of focusing again was challenging for you?
Oh, absolutely. So day one of COVID. So I was doing quite a lot of sculpture and just rolling, and it was great. And then as soon as COVID hit, there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of tension and a lot of unknowns. And the sculpting process is quite dirty and quite physical. So I get into my studio, wear a respirator, safety goggles, toque, hearing protection, and I wear multiple layers of clothes. And so it's very dirty, it's very noisy, and then once I've done that, then I have to actually physically hand polish. So the polishing of a rock, again, when you see it in a river, it's had thousands of years of water and sand. I have to do that by hand in about 30 to 40 hours to make it to that high shine. So there's a lot of work that goes into that. And the energy that I had around COVID was totally gone. But what I found is that I was spending infinitely more time in my mind. And I found the need to write. And I've been writing, and this goes back to some wonderful teachers in junior high and high school that motivated me to write. And so I've been writing ever since. And so when COVID hit, I needed to work out my thoughts and emotions in writing. And so I did a lot of writing, and as part of that, self-published 3 books. And they're nothing fancy, it's just, it's very whimsical, but it was a fun project that I'd been working on in the back of my mind, but when COVID hit, it basically demanded that I do that to allow, again, that focus to something else rather than the uncertainty of the times.
Absolutely. And just speaking about your writing a little bit, what is your writing process like?
It's quite organic. So with the books that are published, they're called Bus Stop Philosophy. And the story behind that would be 2 people sitting at a bus stop solving the world's problems, and you've only got 2 minutes until the bus gets there, so they're just quick little thoughts and ideas. And as with any conversation, particularly on a bus stop with a stranger, it might be funny, it might be insightful, or it might just be plain, as I call it, BS, which is bus stop abbreviated. So it's BS philosophy. So you take out of it what you want. But then somebody also noted there's sometimes these quotes or sayings graffitied into different bus stops. So, you know, there might be a marketing angle somewhere down there, but I don't want to graffiti any bus stops. So that's it. It's 1 paragraph, 1 line. And actually during that process, a friend of mine, he self-published a book with his wife, and it went on to win or nominated for 9 international awards. It was an outstanding project. And so when COVID hit and I'm doing lots of writing, I thought I need to get these in a book. And so I reached out to my friend Doug and said, Doug, can you handle this project for me? And he said, yeah, of course. So what I started doing is dumping the contents of my phone to Doug. And he came back and he said, okay, Grant, stop. We're at page 400 and we haven't got to short stories or anecdotes yet. Now, the idea was to get this out by Christmas, and it would be tight with editing on short stories and anecdotes. So we just went with the quick hits, the one-liners, 1 paragraph, and ran with that. But I asked Doug, I don't want to do a 400-page book. The idea was to do 1 book of 136 pages. And so Doug came back and said, I noticed there's themes throughout a lot of this. So why don't you categorize the themes? So In one book, it would be art. Another book would be around politics and social media, and another book just about my philosophies on life and death. But each topic couldn't fill an entire book, but there was a lot of categories that didn't have that particular theme. So in the back half of the book, they fall under the BS category. So again, it was just fun. And where that actually came from, my dad was a bit of a character and always said a lot of things that were quite funny and humorous and had his own language. But I was in broadcasting for 29 years prior to doing the art gallery. And one day this coworker comes up to me and she says this quote. And I said, hey, that's great. I really like that. Where'd you hear that? And she looks at me like I've got three heads, and she said, you say that. And I don't ever remember saying that in my life. I can't take credit for it. But I'm flattered, but I don't remember saying that. And then quite literally the next week, a different coworker comes up, and he says a quote. And so I ask him, where'd you hear that? And same thing. He says, you say that. And I don't remember saying that. So I thought, if I'm coming up with these, what I thought were clever at the time, I should start writing them down. So that's when I started writing them down. And again, they came into the books, and it's selling quite well. Again, I only sell them through my gallery, nothing major, but I've sold over 500 so far.
Oh, wow. I would love to, you might just have to get one. I love reading. So speaking a bit more about your writing and your artwork, who or what actually inspires the art that you make?
Well, I guess that's part B to the same question, is when I say it comes quite organically, I don't know where it comes from. It hits. Like, again, the quotes. There's another book project that I am working on, and it's currently being illustrated. I was actually offered a publishing deal, but publisher ran into some issues, and it's better for me that I'm actually not with them. But when they did offer me the deal, they actually sent a contract, everything. They said, we love the story, but we want to create a series from it. We see a lot of potential in it. So I went and I wrote the second one and come up with the concept for the third. But again, as I was reaching out to them, that's when I found out through some friends that they were going through some challenging times, and that was in COVID. So all right, and never did get the contract back. So, but again, it allowed me more freedom. So I've hired one of the best young Indigenous artists I feel in Canada, who has amazing upside. She's doing the illustrating. So the story basically is inspired by my grandma, who was Métis but raised Cree. Cree was her first language. It's all she really knew how to read and write. And so she was born in 1910. And so during that time, the world changed entirely. And so I wanted to write a story about an Indigenous female with an aptitude for resilience. And so that's what this character is loosely based on, is my grandma and her character. So it's set pre-contact, and it's set in current places around Alberta. So when I went to write the rest of the book, I literally traveled to these places to feel the story and put the character in it, and essentially scene block in my mind the story. So that's being illustrated now. So that story came quite out of nowhere. I was sitting in a parking lot in Canmore, and I look up at a mountain, and it's got a sheer face. And I was thinking, how did the first peoples of this area get over these mountains? Because it would be quite intimidating. And so as I sat there, the story just started falling into my mind, and it just kept going. So I ran into a bookstore, bought a book, bought a pen, got back to my truck, and just wrote it page after page after page so I wouldn't forget. So again, it's about resilience, and so the character gets to one mountain, and I'll give you a quick story on it, but she gets to one mountain and is stuck. So her grandma is quite ill, needs medicine that grows on the other side of the mountains, in other words, another microclimate. And so she's got to get there. So gets to the first mountain and can't get over it. But she meets a mountain goat and talks to the mountain goat. So the mountain goat gets her over the mountain. And then gets to the second mountain and can't get over it. But she friends an eagle, and so she flies over it. The next mountain, she can't get over it, but she meets a marmot and goes through it. And so then she gets to the fourth mountain, and learning how to climb, how to jump and fly, and how to tunnel, she uses the skills that she's learned from the other three animals to get over. And so then she gets to the medicine man on the other sides and gets the medicine. And now she's got to get back over 4 mountains, but a lot of time has gone by, and Grandma's no doubt getting ill. So she looks to get a drink of water in the river and realizes that that river will take her home. And so using her own intelligence, builds a raft and gets back home.
Wow.
So it's about overcoming challenges and obstacles, using the people around you and the resources around you.
That's a really inspiring story.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, wow. Thank you for sharing that. So moving a bit away from your art, we'll talk a bit more maybe about the gallery.
Yeah.
And so when did you open your gallery?
7 years ago. So we've been around 7 years here in Grande Prairie. I did have a second location in Kananaskis. We opened that in our second year, but during COVID, I did have to close it. I struggled to find staff. The tourism industry at that point, the borders were still closed, and foreign tourists, American tourists were a big part of what we did. So it was too much weight to bear just in COVID, keeping one place, let alone one that was a 7-hour drive away.
Absolutely.
So I just had to make the decision to close that one. So this one's been around 7 years though.
And so what was the inspiration for opening an art gallery?
As I mentioned, I was in broadcasting for 29 years. And during that, it was a wonderful career. But I worked for 2 of Canada's 3 richest people from one place to the other. And as again I matured and started realizing different aspects of life, I realized that I'm working to make someone else more money. And I'd fulfilled my dreams. 19-year-old Grant set out to be a general manager of a young fun radio station, and I achieved that. But then I asked myself, what does 48-year-old Grant want? And it was to get out of the corporate world and do something that feeds the soul. I felt Grande Prairie was due for an art gallery. It had a great one years ago, but it went through a number of successive owners and eventually just fizzled out. So I think about 7-8 years had gone by, and I had decided that Grande Prairie hopefully has the population mass and mature enough that it will sustain an art gallery. So part of the thinking was both of my grandparents, sets of grandparents, and both of my parents actually all started their own small business. That's just, again, the way I was raised. And so when I looked around, again, I love art. I love going into galleries. If I travel, that's a day is spent in art galleries looking at art. And tourism is a big part of what we do. But I wanted to create platform and opportunity for artists, not just locally, but bring some quality artwork into Grande Prairie. But one of the big things when I measured it out is when I was in broadcasting, I was in marketing for 2 decades, and I'd seen so many businesses, young owners, ambitious people, create a store, and then a box store comes in and puts them out of business in one aisle. So I wanted to make a business that big box stores couldn't compete with me. So that meant one-of-a-kind original art. There's only one piece, and I'm dealing with an artist with only so much capacity that a box store just can't deal with that fine of a product because they're primarily doing mass. And so this is more of a specialty thing, and so that was a number of factors that went into doing this.
Absolutely. And I think just looking around at the art, which again we'll show later on, I also adore art. I know nothing about it because I'm not a good artist myself, but just the depth and the emotion, and it's just a completely different vibe. I feel like walking into a place like this where everything is unique and one of a kind versus going into somewhere more mainstream where there's a zillion copies of the same thing. But yeah, anyway. What would you say was the most challenging part of opening the gallery?
Opening was the easy part because I'd literally launched a radio station in 6 weeks. Wow. So opening up an art gallery in 6 weeks wasn't a big challenge. I'd already had the artist network. I've been juried into the Alberta Society of Artists for many, many years, so I built a wonderful network through that. Plus, just being involved in the artistic community here in Grande Prairie, I knew a lot of artists. So recruiting the artists isn't a problem, still isn't a problem. The biggest challenge has been spreading awareness and appreciation of original art. And that's a big communication piece. So going back, and this is kind of a story that will tie back in. So when I was young, I was 14, 15 years old, ran into a series of medical issues with my kidney, and things went from bad to worse very fast. What was supposed to be a routine surgery turned into 1 year in and out of the hospital with 6 major surgeries, going into, I believe it was the 3rd or 4th surgery. I actually said goodbye to my family because we didn't know if I'd live through the day. And actually during that surgery, I woke up on the operating table only for a minute, and I thought that was actually me passing away. So when I woke up in recovery, my life had changed. And my perspective on the world had changed going through that too. So when they eventually took my kidney out, they kept me in essentially a drug-induced coma for 4 or 5 days. But what's interesting is although I looked like I was in a coma, my mind was active. I could hear everything that was going on in the room. I knew who was there, but I was essentially paralyzed to signal or communicate to them. But my mind was awake. And my bed backed onto what was called the teen room. So in the teen room, they would turn on the radio at about 8 in the morning and turn it off at 10 at night. And so my brain latched onto that music. And it rode those musical notes like a roller coaster. And that kept me sane because I immersed myself in that music because that's all I had. And then when I was actually able to walk around the floors, what I did is I would walk and I would look at the pieces of art on our floor. And I would actually stand and pause and stare at whatever painting was there. And I would feel what the artist wanted, what the message was. And I would get lost in it because it didn't matter what style it was an escape from my reality. And so then when I ran out of artwork on my floor, then I started going to other floors and looking at their artwork and just getting into it and feeling it. And so my entire adult life has been dedicated now to spreading music through 29 years in broadcasting to now 7 years of art, because I know what art and music do to the soul and the healing that it does to people in trouble or crisis. I've had so many people ask, so you look back at that time and it must be traumatic. And I said, actually, that's some of the most beautiful times in my life. So when life was at its darkest and hope was faint, there was still art and music that gave me hope and took me somewhere else out of that. And it saved my soul to the point that now that, again, this is my life, is art and music.
That's very inspiring.
Thank you.
I think it says a lot about your character and who you are to be able to come back from something like that, and again, like, be resilient and not be swallowed in the negativity, but be able to pop out of it and be like, no, there's good in the world.
There really is.
There really is. And just hearing what you're saying about the importance of art and music, it reminds me, I don't know if you've ever seen Dead Poets Society.
Of course.
But there's, I don't know who the writer is, so I can't quote the writer, unfortunately, but Robin Williams' quote of like medicine, law, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life, but like music, art, poetry, that's what we stay alive for.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. I have one uncle, I think the world of him. And so it's on my mom's side, so he's half Cree, half Scottish. But he will comment, and this is a thing in the family, but he'll say, you know, we're not lawyer smart, we're not doctor smart, we're not engineer smart, but we all do possess an intelligence that he feels is quite rare. And so I carry that with me because, again, I don't think that I'm a fool. I might be a fool at some things, but as we all are.
we all are. Yeah.
But again, I'm not, I don't have that aptitude to sit down at a book for 10 years and study engineering, medicine, or what have you. So, again, there's a creative, and I believe it's called EQ versus IQ.
Yeah, and I think it's so important for people to be aware of that and that there are different ways of being smart. Because Einstein also has a quote that's, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll live its whole life thinking it's stupid.
Yeah.
And I think it's really unfortunate because a lot of the time people are maybe not told that they're stupid, but you know, in school, when you go to school, math, social science, and English are all mandatory, but art and drama are like options. They're like side classes that aren't seen as important per se.
Yeah.
And I think we're doing a disservice to kids, especially.
I absolutely agree.
You know, they can be creative. They can be
Yeah.
creative smart, but
Well, and as you go through life, everything that we involve ourselves with was created by an artist or a designer, be it a house, car, vehicle, your kitchen table, the chairs you sit on. Every aspect of what we go through during our day, our clothes, are made by creative people.
absolutely. And I think too, the whole point of why we work the jobs that we do is so we can do things that make us feel, which is what art and music and everything does, you know?
Yeah, and I have this conversation a lot. As you see around the gallery, you won't see a lot of photorealistic art. For me, it's about feeling. And as I'd mentioned during the hospital experience, it was about connection. In a very loose way, there was the group of 7 artists in Canada in the early 1900s. The style of art was very European, photorealistic, and I call it horse and hound art because it was always the fox hunt. And this group of 7 artists felt that doesn't represent Canada. To them, Canada was bright, bold, rugged, passionate. So you see big brush strokes of color and passion and rugged. And to them, that was what Canada was and is. And so you'll find a lot of that through the gallery because it is about feeling what the artist feels when they're there, not necessarily seeing what the artist sees when they're there. A camera can do that. But painting is about emotion and making connection.
Yeah, and getting the impact of the piece that the artist has created.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so back to the gallery, in creating it for the feeling and the uniqueness, what has been the most rewarding part for you since opening?
As you could tell, I love story. And so when I look around the gallery, we have some outstanding artists, and all of them have great stories. And if I can work my way into their story, there's a lot of pride in that. So, you know, when they're in their later days and they reflect on their life and the good things, and their family looks back, again, I want to be part of that story, that I helped bring them some of their success and some of the notoriety that they wanted to get out to the world and their story, and I helped tell that.
Absolutely. And so how many artists do you carry in your gallery?
There's about 55 in here. I haven't actually really counted. Some artists cycle in, others cycle out again. Every artist that I bring in, I would happily put in my own home. But the problem is that we are a commercial gallery, so we have to sell. So if the city isn't responding to it, I'm actually doing the artists a disservice by hanging on to it. So we cycle artists out, it gets them their artwork back, and they can find a market that will appreciate their artwork. For me, if it's not selling, then I've got it on the wall, and if it's not going to sell, then I need to find something that will. Mm-hmm. So I send an artist out and I bring a new one in. And so that's typically about 5 a year that we'll cycle out and bring 5 new ones in.
Wow. And so we'll talk a bit more about the art when we move to the art.
Okay.
But moving on past your art and your gallery, what do you do? Well, I guess not past the art, but what do you do outside of the gallery?
Well, I've always volunteered for a number of organizations that have built culture here in Grande Prairie. So I moved here from the Edmonton area in 1991. Well, actually, I was in radio in Peace River from 88 to 91. Then I moved here in 1991. And at that time, for a young guy that was 21, 22 years old, all there was to go to the bar. And again, I could listen to people, the DJ, and it was someone else picking the tunes instead of me. So that's what I did. I just went to the bar and I listened to music. Never a big drinker, so, sometimes it got a little sloppy with whoever you're hanging out with, and that's not always fun. So one day, and this true story, it actually happened. I looked in the mirror and I said, somebody has to do something here. And then I said, Grant, you have to be that guy that helps create things here in Grande Prairie. So I volunteered for our rodeo, the Grande Prairie Stampede. One of my jobs was to book the bands that came in, and so I did that. I volunteered for the Grande Prairie Storm Hockey Club as they transferred from the Rocky Mountain Junior Hockey League, which was basically just a fight fest, into the Alberta Junior Hockey League, much more professional, more developmental league. So was involved with that and actually won their Volunteer of the Year. Other things that I've been part of was the Sexsmith Museum Society, which is rich in the preservation of their history. I was the chairman of the Art Gallery of Grande Prairie when it was being built, or rebuilt, so it had a collapse in 2007, and I could tell you a little bit about that later. But I've always been involved in projects that improve the quality of life here in Grande Prairie, so that when somebody comes here, they don't ask themselves, what is there to do besides go to a bar? And so I've been active in that for well over 30 years. And in the last civic election, so for city council, I had so many people encouraging me to run for city council. And I think I turned about the first 8 people down. And then this one person actually said the magic words, and it clicked, where she said, Grant, imagine what you can do for all of these organizations and for the quality of life and building culture in Grande Prairie from a seat in city council rather than sitting on 2 or 3 boards. And I thought, yeah, that actually makes sense. So I ran for city council and got on. So basically I have 2 full-time jobs, it seems.
Wow.
So this is something from one of my mentors, Doug Copeland, was in a conversation, and what he said is he blocks off every day before noon. That's his time to be creative, relax, whatever he needs. The rest of the day is wide open, and I don't have that luxury, but what I do protect is I protect my Sunday mornings. Nobody gets those. That is for me to sleep in with no alarm, wake up when I wake up, enjoy and make myself a nice big breakfast, coffee, and just treat myself to whatever I want. And then I still protect the rest of the Sundays, but not as strong. So there are some things that come up that, yeah, okay, I can do that. And so that is kind of a philosophy that I maintain, and it works out well because I'm an introvert trained as an extrovert. So I'm an introvert. When I was a young radio guy, quite honestly, you're one person sitting in a room alone telling people about the music and the weather. And so it's a very introverted job. But when you have to go out in the public, then you need to be extroverted. And so, like quite honestly, after this, I'm doing a ribbon cutting for a 50th anniversary on behalf of the city. So, so it's that odd dynamic where, again, you might be an extrovert, but you have, or you might be an introvert, but you have to have extroverted qualities to make it through these two different careers that I've had. And so that's where I find peace. So yes, I'm very busy, again, working on stone sculptures a lot of weekends and evenings, but I make the time, and as you mentioned about that focus piece, if I'm enjoying what I'm doing, it doesn't require focus. And so that's what I do outside of this is my other job, and when I'm not doing that other job, I'm doing the art. So there's running a gallery, there's city council, and there's creating art.
Busy, busy, busy.
Yeah.
But I love that you keep your Sunday mornings. I think that's really good for, I mean, I'm not you, so I don't know, but I'm assuming it would be like good for you mentally and being able to like have that break and that remove from every other thing that you have to do in the world. Yeah,
recenter, because I know people that don't do that and they burn themselves out.
Yeah. Yep, I know.
You look guilty.
Know those people. Maybe a little bit, but we're getting better, so I'm learning. I like the Sunday morning idea, so I might steal that.
Okay. I stole it.
Yeah. There's that quote that's like steal from the greats, you know? So
yeah.
Exactly. That's what we do as artists, basically.
Absolutely, yeah.
One question though I wanted to ask, just speaking more about your art and like working on it, how was it for you starting out like as an artist, not kind of like selling your art, but then turning it into more of like a monetary, like you do a thing and then you get paid for it? What was that like? Was it weird?
No, I can't believe how lucky I got. So I was just doing these at home, again, in my yard. And what I had ultimately hoped is that I could create something that would be cool enough that my artist friends would want to trade. That was actually the ambition at the time. And so when I said I got lucky, there was an open call from the Alberta Society of Artists. And it's Alberta's longest running professional arts organization. It's got to be around 85, 86 years. Some of Canada's greatest artists are in it. I even remember at one time, I think it was the 80th anniversary, I was in line behind Barbara Patterson. And at that day, Barbara Patterson's artwork was on the back of the $50 bill. So that these are the kind of people that you're hanging out with. So it's a great arts organization. And so there was an open call for artwork in this one show in the Calgary area. So I submitted to it, and the only person that knew I was actually doing sculpture was my wife and kids. It wasn't in the public realm at all. And so I submitted to that and was shocked that I was actually accepted. So the very first submission that I ever did was accepted into this provincial art show. So I actually went down there and met some amazing people, including some that are in the gallery now. And so then it became, the next step was the Alberta Society of Artists is now doing a call for membership. And so I applied for that, having only had one piece ever shown and having never sold a single piece, and I was accepted. And that blew me away. And in the meantime, I've actually sat on the jury, and the resumes and the talent of some of the artists that are in there are amazing. And not everyone gets in. So I sit back shocked to this day that they accepted me, having shown once with them. I had no resume, no depth, but it was terrific. And so another thing that had happened, and this was, again, lightning strike out of nowhere, but I was working on a piece, and at this point, I was part of the Alberta Society of Artists, and I'd found a little bit of success. Nothing huge, though. But I'm working on a sculpture in the yard at the acreage, and my wife comes out, and she's holding the phone, and says, there's a guy who wants to talk to you. He wants to buy a sculpture. And at this point, as I said, I'm respirator, goggles, toque, safety, and I'm coated in dust with 3 layers of clothing. And I said, I can't take the call. I said, but he's calling from Vancouver. And I can't. So just take his name and number and I'll call him back. So there was no phone number, but there was an email. And the guy's name was Doug, and the email was Copeland at whatever. And I go, I know that name somehow, some way, but it's not coming to me. So I hit Google and Doug Copeland, Vancouver, and Wikipedia comes up, and it's like this. Like it's huge. So for those that aren't familiar, he wrote the book Generation X. Anytime you hear Generation X, he popularized that term globally. He's written the Terry Fox biography. The Fox family invited him to do that. But so many things in today's pop culture world revolve around Doug. But even on like if you've been to Vancouver, the Terry Fox Memorial outside BC Place is one of Doug's sculptures. The digital orca at the Olympic Flame in Vancouver is one of Doug's.
Cool. We took pictures by.
So I actually thought this could be a scam, because artists get scammed all the time. And so in the emails, we set up a phone call. And when you've been in radio for 29 years, or whatever it was at that point, voices are almost as recognizable as faces. So I went to YouTube, and I'm watching every Doug Copeland interview. And
just to make sure.
Yeah. So then we get on the phone, and right away, it is him.
Oh, my God.
And so I thought, like, okay, so he listed off. I'd had a blog at the time, and it doesn't exist now because it was one of the early ones, and whoever was sponsoring it basically folded it and come up with a new modern version. But so anyway, Doug was saying, hey, I want to buy one of your sculptures. So he listed off about 4 or 5, and then I think it might have been the 6th one I still had. So he bought it, and now he owns 3. But in this conversation, he was complimenting my sculpture. He said, you've got these strong native lines in there, and he loved that, but it also has a group of 7 feeling, because again, as Métis, 1/4 Cree, 3/4 European, I can draw on all of our ancestors and all of our stories and put that into my artwork. But he loved what I was doing, and at the time, and I was Googling it, there was nobody that was doing stone trees in North America. No, not online. I didn't see one, and Doug couldn't find any either other than me. And so in this conversation, because I thought, okay, well, I've got Doug Copeland on the phone. He's a busy guy. And I think, honestly, he was in People magazine when he had called. But he's been in Rolling Stone Time, the whole bit. And so he says, again, compliments the lines, that I'm really onto something unique. But the comment was he said, Grant, you're the American Idol contestant with the talent, but you need somebody to edit you, and I'm going to be that guy. And when I tell fellow artists that Doug phoned and basically said that he's going to help mentor me, that just doesn't happen. So again, as I said, I've been so incredibly fortunate in the people that have surrounded themselves around me. And likewise, again, this is what I've got in my gallery. I magnified that 55 times. And just build a wonderful artistic network. And we all work together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so roundabout way of answering a short question.
No, we love it. And I think, too, just that whole experience is really wild.
Yeah.
But the fact that he wanted to work with you, that speaks volumes.
It blows my mind
for
to this
who
day.
you are and, your artwork. And so...
Yeah.
For you to kind of take that and then work with other artists and give them a platform that kind of similar to what was given to you, that's just incredible.
Yeah.
And I think people are very grateful for that.
Yeah, so afraid that I would only ever get one conversation with them, I said, so let's start the mentoring today. So what's lesson number 1? And he said, focus on the trees. And at that point, what I was actually having fun doing is I was having fun doing the trees. But I was also trying to, out of stone, create the intangible. So what I was trying to carve were images like the north wind or a summer solstice or clouds. and doing like storms. And so I was doing a lot of that, and I was having fun with that. But Doug said, focus on the trees. And I said, Doug, I don't want to be the tree guy. And he said, be the tree guy, it'll put your kids through college. So anyway, I became the tree guy, and they sell so incredibly well.
Puts the kids through college.
But so this is good and bad, I think, to some measure, is it takes a lot of work to create. And one of the reasons that I did establish that gallery in Kananaskis was to establish my brand across the entire province. But now you can't go into a gallery in the Calgary area without seeing 40 tree sculptures. And after a couple of shows that I had down there, then they start popping up everywhere. So I like to think that I inspired that movement.
Yeah.
Although my style is very different. Like that was an early style that I did that I see in the galleries in Calgary. What I do now is entirely different. So I still have my own voice and my own story.
For sure, but it's still cool being a trendsetter.
Yeah.
You know? Being ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Like, gotta love it.
Yeah.
That's so funny. And so so we had talked about what you do outside of the gallery. And what would you say is your favorite thing about living in Grande Prairie?
Well, there's a lot. Again, I sit on city council. So there obviously has to be some passion there. One of the things that I find, and this is being a small business person too, but again, having been in radio, giving you some more background, I was in the marketing aspect for 19 years. And so I'm dealing with small businesses, and I watched determined small business people go from one guy quite literally working out of his dad's closet in his doctor's office to setting up a really great business here in town. One guy went on, he started out selling used cars on a gravel lot and became one of the largest travel trailer dealers in all of North America. So I was there on day one, and I was alongside these guys as they built their company. There's a lot of ambition and a great small business community, and I was fortunate to be part of that. And when I travel anywhere else, I expect to find that same energy, and I don't. Grande Prairie is a very innovative community, town, and very ambitious, and I love that aspect of it.
I definitely see that. We've only been here for like a day and a half, but the few people that we have come in contact with and the places that we've been, I definitely get that sense and that vibe, and I'm sure it'll only grow throughout the week that we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so last question. This is my favorite question to ask people.
Okay.
But what is the best piece of advice you've received throughout your life? No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. And for the people watching, she actually tipped me off that this might be a question. And I replied that I really don't know. That's a great question. And days later, I still don't have an answer. So what I do, words of wisdom can be amazing. And you've thrown out some wonderful quotes. I love quotes. And again, I've got 3 books of quotes. But what I actually do is I learn and follow by example. And so I can't say that there's been one quote or one piece of advice somebody's given me that struck with me that said, yes, that is the way I go. I watch and learn from people around me and how they carry themselves, be it my grandpa, my grandma, my parents, co-workers, friends. Surround myself with some amazing people, and I'm not threatened by intelligence, so I always like to surround myself with the smartest and brightest people that I can find. They intrigue me, they challenge me, and so I learn by their actions, and I learn by how they carry themselves and who they are. And so more than words, ironically, it's actions and how people carry themselves and their character.
That's a very interesting way of looking at it. I've never had anyone reply with that before, but it makes sense of like action, because actions speak louder than words,
Yeah.
a cliche, but no, really. And I see that kind of in people's behavior, you know, how you've been raised is how you act, and it's always carried forward. So
Yeah,
that's
and
really
there is a
cool.
measure of hypocrisy in words in many cases. And so if I was to have one pet peeve, that might be it, where say one thing, do another. And so I think probably it's somewhere in my youth, I learned that words don't always carry the weight that they should, but I'll follow the actions.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Yeah.
Now we're going to get up and see some of the artwork and talk a bit more about it. And here we are up in the gallery. So is there another piece of art or a couple pieces of art that are your favorites from another artist?
Yeah, absolutely, and this is one of them. This was created by an Inuit sculptor, Paul Kayatinowak, and the story behind this piece, as you can see, it's incomplete. When I was doing marketing, I had a client of mine that was organizing a trade show in Fairview, and so her home office was where we met. And as I walked into their home, they had the most beautiful Inuit sculpture I'd ever seen in my life. And I've seen a lot of art. This gentleman was superior who created it, and it was her husband, Paul. And so I asked, I'm a fan of chess, so I asked Paul, can you create a chess set for me? An Inuit chess set, because I've always wanted a culturally significant chess set. And so what I thought is I'll just get a bunch of 2-inch pieces. What is there, 32 pieces in a chess set. Over the course of a year, I can afford it if they're $100, $150, $200 each, rather than all of this sculpture together. So what wound up happening is a year had gone by, and so I see Sue the next year to set up the next year's trade show, and she assured me that the chess set will happen. And then another year goes by. The chess set's going to happen, and another year goes by. And 5 years of Sue saying, it's on his radar, he's going to get to it, he's just not there yet. And then it dawned on me, you know what, I'm asking this significant artist to create trinkets. It's not going to happen. And so another 5 years go by, and it actually kind of becomes a running joke. Like, we both know it's not going to happen, but we joke about it. And then Sue stops doing the trade show, and it's another 5 years or so goes by, and I see her just in a social gathering, and she goes, hey, Grant, just so you know, Paul had throat cancer a couple years ago, and he stopped carving entirely. And so she asked if I wanted to buy any of his pieces that he had finished. And I said, absolutely. So I didn't have the money then to buy it, but I had enough to put a nice deposit on it, and I said, I've got a nice bonus coming in 7 or 8 weeks. I'll be back and I can pay for the balance then. And they were fine with that. So I went to the home and I picked out this spectacular narwhal. And at that point, I'd actually told Paul, hey, you inspired me to start stone sculpting. I'm actually finding pretty decent success across the province, and I showed him, again, on my cell phone, a few of my sculptures, and just what an inspiration he really was to get me going, because I didn't think it was possible, and he showed me that it was. And so I go back 7 weeks later with the rest of the money, and he is back carving again. He's got about 10 amazing sculptures on the go. And having not carved for 2 years, I like to think that I motivated him and fed his ego enough that he actually started again.
Yeah.
So a few months goes by, and I run into Sue again in a social gathering, and she said, hey, Grant, there's no easy way to say this, but Paul's cancer came back and he's gone. And so she said, do you want to buy any stone or any tools? And I said, well, I don't need any tools. I'm set up there, but I've got an exhibition coming up. I really could use some stone. So she said, yeah, let me get it organized, and then I'll get it to you. And so anyway, where she worked was part of my regular cycle. So I would go there every week anyway. So I went there the following week. Hey, Sue, can I pick up the stone? It's not a good time. Can I go next week? Sue, can I pick up the stone? Oh, it's not a good time. So again, 5 or 6 weeks go by, and it's not a good time. And I'm running out of time to create enough pieces for this show, which has a start date. And so I'm basically at a drop dead point. I need this stone. Otherwise, I have to drive to Edmonton or Calgary and get some. And so I go to her work, and she goes, it's not a good time. There's literally 3 feet of snow between the deck and the studio, and it's about 20 feet to get there. I said, Sue, I can shovel. It's not a big deal. So she said, okay, well, let's go to the house at noon, and you can shovel, and we'll get it. So I get there, and I start shoveling, and I'm about halfway there, and I look up on the deck, and I see Sue watching, and I'm going, why is she watching me shovel? And it dawned on me, she hasn't been in there since he passed away. And I turned around and said, Sue, we don't have to do this. I get it now. I'm sorry. I apologize. I can go to Edmonton. I'm so sorry that I put you in this situation. And she goes, no, keep going. I need this. So I shovel to the door, and I make it so it'll open. And I go, Sue, I want you to go in first. And she goes, no, I want you to go in first. I open up the door. And here's the chess set. It's what he was working on when he passed away.
Oh my gosh. That's so cute.
So there it is.
It's amazing.
And what's interesting is I was talking to, again, a collaborator of Doug Copeland. They actually worked on an art book together, but I was telling him about this. And he said at that point in history, which is probably 10 years ago, he knew of 4 Inuit chess sets in the world. So this would basically be 4.5.
Yeah.
Or 4 1/4. Mm-hmm. And then another one, and again, sadly, this was an artist that surprisingly passed away. And this is J. Bell Redbird. And so Jay is another genius artist that I was fortunate to work with. And with Jay, well, so there's a book that I read, and it's one of my favorite books, and it's called Bumping into Geniuses. And the author of it, basically his best piece of advice his dad ever gave him was find a genius and hang on as long as you can. So what he did is he became a music producer, or involved a music agent, and worked with artists like Kurt Cobain and Stevie Nicks. And so those were his geniuses that he hung on to. And so Jay, when I saw his artwork, again, superior to any other artwork that was out there. So the style is called woodland. And basically, we're all familiar with the Haida and Salish art on the West Coast. But the artwork of Indigenous artists from the prairies, basically from the Rocky Mountains to Northern Ontario, is called woodland. And that's this style. And Jay, again, superior to anybody out there. And so I was hounding him to get his artwork. And eventually I cracked him enough that we were able to get his artwork here. And we were the only gallery in Western Canada with it.
Wow.
And so Jay's dad is Duke Redbird. And Duke is well known in the Toronto art scene. And again, there's some great stories that probably could come another time, but they're Jay's and his family's, not mine necessarily to tell, but connected with the top of the top, like Joni Mitchell, Danny DeVito kind of people. That's their circle.
Yeah.
Russell Crowe. But we were the only gallery with Jay's work, and Jay actually came up for an exhibition. And when he was here, he said, "Hey, Grant, I've already had 2 heart attacks. Make sure you never sell out of my artwork because I don't know when the 3rd one's going to take me." Oh. And so, out of coincidence, I thought, okay, well, I've got 2 left from this show, and we had 25 pieces or something. It sold amazingly well. People recognized what they were seeing. And I had 2, and I was going to sell 1 and then keep the other one. Well, I sold both within 20 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And so, to 2 different people. So I had none. I go, Jay, I need some more artwork. So he sends me 3, and I sold 1 immediately. So I've got 2. And I open up Facebook one morning, and his significant other does a post that, hey, Jay, 3rd one came, and it took him out. And so I kept this one, and the other one went to my sister, who was also a big fan. And so Jay's work, the detail, he put every dot in there. It was meticulous artwork, and the hand that he had. But Jay is one of the best storytellers I've ever met. And again, as I said, there's all these stories about these great celebrities. Because he actually worked in the movie industry to start with. And he said that he would get these roles of basically playing the big Indian, and so he'd jump out of the bush and go ooga booga, and so he got tired of that. So then he worked setting up locations in the movie industry. And it was actually Danny DeVito, Russell Crowe, and I believe it was, I won't name drop the last one because it's one of two actresses that I always get mixed up. But anyway, those were the type of people that were buying his art and said, Jay, you need to become an artist. Yeah. And even while he was here, he's going, oh, it's DeVito's agent again. He wants some more paintings. Anyway.
Like, oh, not again.
Yeah.
Obsessed with me.
Yeah, and so anyway, on the back, and I'll take this down and show you, but Jay would actually write the historic relevance to what everything in it means.
Wow. That's amazing. And so he did that with.
Do you want to read it?
Yeah, you want to read it out?
Oh, sure. Do you want me to hold it? And you can
No,
read it?
you.
Okay. Leader of Loyalty, 2019. The loon represents leadership and loyalty. The circle represents a sweet lodge. 7 dots are humility, wisdom, bravery, honesty, truth, respect, and love. The 4 dots are to take care of yourself as a child, teenager, adult, and elder. The bubbles are good healing memories. The 3 dots are mind, body, and spirit. My lines mean to follow the good way of living and not to judge other cultures or religions. J. Bell Redberg. That's amazing. And the fact that it's written on the back, like,
so
that's just...
in my mind, Jay was destined to be one of Canada's all-time great artists. And again, he was my genius that I was latching onto, but again, taken way too soon. But again, I'm happy that I got to be part of his story and he part of mine. So as I'd mentioned with Doug Copeland, he said focus on the trees. So how I stumbled upon the trees was quite by accident. I've always loved that Japanese painting, the tsunami. And so what I wanted to do is recreate that in stone or something similar to it. So I created a ridge of mountains, and then I created the wave coming towards them. But it was flat on one side, and so you could stand it up, and when I looked at it, it actually looked like a tree being weighed down on top with snow. I thought, hey, I can do trees. So then I did this one here. And so it's just a little guy, but it's the first real tree that I did. And so I said I'm never selling this one. Oh, and so this is Brazilian soapstone. So that's tree number 1. This one here is one that I've actually had bronze reproductions of. And it's called Over the Bow. So in a very literal sense, it is a tree that I had seen when I was in Banff. And as I was crossing the bridge to go to the Banff Springs Hotel on the left, I saw this tree arched out over the river. And a metaphor came to mind, a story came to mind, and I had to create it. And so with Over the Bow, this tree was planted in one of the most beautiful places on earth. Its roots firmly planted in a great location. Through time, though, and through no fault of its own, its roots start to get swept away by the river. And as those roots get swept away, it starts to fall. And in order to survive, it has to adapt. And in order to adapt, it does 2 things. It rebalances itself, and it reaches for the sun again. And because of the hardships in combination with its ability to adapt, it actually now becomes the most beautiful tree in the forest because of its resilience. And so there's a metaphor there in so many things. So when I look back at the Indigenous people, I look at my grandma and her ancestors that had a way of life here for thousands of years, and then suddenly that whole lifestyle gets swept away through no fault of their own. And so they had to adapt in order to survive. And my grandma adapted exceptionally well. She had 8 kids. My grandpa came from Scotland when he was 17. They married. He had trapping license number 2 here in Alberta. And so But yeah, they adapted well, raised 8 wonderful kids, and lots of grandchildren, doing wonderful things around our entire province in every community, it seems. I can't go through a small town without bypassing family members. But so this, and a lot of my trees that I do are about resilience, about weathering the storm, the weather of the north. So that's one of my public sculptures that I have at the Montrose Cultural Centre. It's called Windswept, and it's a tree that leans to the east, and when you're here you'll notice a lot of trees lean to the east just due to our prevailing west winds. It shapes them. Our winters are harsh, and so they get shaped by the weather and the elements, and so I use that metaphor for people as well, me included, when I talk about my hospital stay. That could have been a very traumatic thing, but coming out of it was a beautiful thing. And so using those things in your life to become better and stand out in a different way. And so that's what this is. And so in Calgary, or Canmore actually, I had this in a gallery, and a lady wanted to buy it, but she wanted a deal. And I told the gallery owner, no deal. I'll honor the price, but if she says no, ship it back, because I haven't slept all night, worried that I would lose this. So I got it back, and I had it bronzed so that I could sell copies. And what was extremely flattering, again, to me is I had a gentleman, he was a publisher for one of Canada's top art magazines, just happened to be in town, happened to be with a friend, and we invited the friend over for a social evening at our house. And he saw the sculpture, and he said, Grant, this needs to be 27 feet tall. And I'm flattered, yeah, I see this as a public sculpture too. And I said, so out of bronze? And he goes, no, you need to do it out of stone. And I said, well, that's going to take me $1 million in the rest of my life. And he said, but it would be worth it. Yeah, so again, I still want to do it 27 feet tall, but out of bronze somewhere. So I hope someday the opportunity comes up that this sculpture is 27 feet. I don't know why he picked 27 feet. But,
Very specific, but now you have to roll with it.
Yeah, 27 feet tall, so that it can tell that story of resilience.
Beautiful story and a beautiful sculpture.
So another one that's kind of fun that I have here is, as I'd mentioned, I was the chairman of the Art Gallery of Grande Prairie during its construction. So what happened in 2007 is the weight of snow collapsed the entire section of the art gallery here. And so what had happened is the city at the time had voted to tear it down. The province stepped in and said, you can't tear it down, it's a historical resource. And the library and Teresa Sargent Hall were already planned to go in behind as the Montrose Cultural Centre, and it would join this building as a hallway. World economy collapses in 2007. And the Canadian government says, we need to put people to work. It was caused by the housing crisis in the US. We need to put people to work right away. Send us your projects immediately. So the architects that already had the library and hall designed, and one gallery within the Art Gallery of Grande Prairie, they got to work and in a couple of months had redesigned what was a 1929 schoolhouse. They were going to merge the brand new gallery within the facade of the old building and turn it into a state-of-the-art Category A gallery, which means it has the capacity to show any exhibition traveling around the world. And that's a Category A. So climate controls everything. The only thing that we would be lacking would be the security people to monitor it, although it has security controls. So I got to be the chairman during that project, and it was a lot of fun. Although we rarely had any art exhibitions, being part of that was a great experience. So what they actually did is they took the back of the building off brick by brick by brick and rebuilt the front and the side of the building using the back bricks. So when the crews moved off, what I decided to do was go through the mud and the muck and collect broken bricks and make sculptures of them. Oh my God. And so you could still see, you know, there's a crack there. That's why I chose to cut in there. But it's even got, you know, the 1929 Medalta stamp in it. Again, still some original concrete. So that's one of the sculptures from that project.
So cool.
And then over here is another fun one. As I said, lightning strikes many times in many ways. So the Alberta Society of Artists teamed up with the Alberta Ballet, and what we would do is they would pick an artist and create a ballet around it. And they had done this one to the music of Elton John. And so they invite Alberta Society of Artists to participate in that exhibition. So I had this idea, and I'd done it once before with a Stevie Nicks piece where you turn the turntable on and she essentially dances around. But what I wanted to do was create a Rocket Man sculpture. And then when they do the call for Elton John, I said, okay, this is what I need. So I'd already had this. I go to grad sales and buy old records so that I could convert them. And so what I did is I took a piece of black marble, and that's what this is. And then I carved some of the lyrics to Rocket Man in and around it. And then I took an original 1972 Rocket Man 45, recorded in England, and I wanted to create a really campy rocket, so kind of time specific to early science fiction movies where the rockets, they looked so cheesy. So I created a really cheesy rocket. And the idea is that when you turn the record on, the rocket will fly in circles. And inside of it, I disconnected the speaker and I put an MP3 player that would play Rocket Man on a loop. And so that was part of an exhibition where this guy just flew around to Rocket Man. And Elton John announced that he was coming to Grande Prairie. He was doing a small cities tour. And Grande Prairie was one of the places that he chose that he wanted to come to. And this was actually destined to go to that art show with the Alberta Ballet. But I got a call from the Crystal Center here in Grande Prairie that was hosting the event. And they said, Grant, on social media, we've seen you've got this really cool sculpture called Rocket Man. We want to do something special in his dressing room. And can we display your sculpture in his dressing room? And I said, I'm flattered, absolutely. So I dropped it off and I made sure I left a Sharpie beside it, just in case he wanted to autograph it or give him the opportunity, because I don't know if he carried one, but left a brand new Sharpie beside it. And apparently his comments when he saw it were absolutely fantastic. And of course, he's known as Captain Fantastic. So that was kind of fun too, or Rocket Man. And anyway, when I went to go pick it up, there was his autograph on it. So I've got his autograph on my own unique piece of art called Rocket Man. So again, really, really wonderful things happening and great stories in my career. So here are the three different copies of Bus Stop Philosophy. So in many ways, it was something that I was working on earlier on. And I really, again, art matters to me. So I really like the logo. I call him the philosopher, but in all honesty, it's a nerdy version of me, or maybe I'm just nerdy. But anyway, the letters are BSP to make the glasses and the nose and the hairline.
Oh.
So, as I'd mentioned, Volume 1, Life, Death, and BS. One of the quotes in there, each day does not have to be crammed with great ideas and outstanding feats. One great moment can fuel you for years. And so one of the things I think of, like an artist like Dolly Parton that wrote, I Will Always Love You and Jolene on the same day. So in one day fueled her career in many ways for years, even decades later. So, you know, you can have a good day at any day. So Volume 2 is more based around art. And again, so you can kind of see the format is just, you know, one thought or idea, and then just more BS. So it's funny where the mind goes when the mind goes. So that was me in COVID. Losing my mind, but hey, I'm enjoying the trip. So actually this one, there's three different quotes that I like. I've seen so many people self-sabotage and complaining like their job is just not working out, but I see the reason it's not working out is because they sabotaged it. And so the quote is, If the writing is on the wall, pause and take a closer look. It's likely in your handwriting. And so perspective too. Of course, we're horribly divided in our society right now. But one of the things is one person's sunset is another person's sunrise. Again, neither is wrong, just depending on where you're standing. So the guy seeing a sunrise is, telling the guy that it's sunset, telling him he's wrong, but he's not. It's just where he stands. So it's different perspectives. And then this one here, again, goes back to the high school thing where I gave one of my teachers credit. And I actually friended her on Facebook and sent her a note. Actually, there's 2 teachers that I've sent notes to thanking them. And I'll elaborate a little bit. So I was in Barcelona, Spain, a few years ago for my wife and I's 25th anniversary. And we rented a rooftop apartment. And down the street was one of the Gaudi buildings. And so I'm sitting there in Barcelona on a summer night under the stars, looking at this Gaudi building. And I'm writing as I'm just documenting this feeling for myself. And so then I made another note to my teachers. Growing up as a small town kid in Tofield, Alberta, did not prepare me to sit on a rooftop in Barcelona on a summer night overlooking a Gaudi building. But what they did equip me with was the ability to appreciate moments like this and document them. And so I thank my teachers. So one of the things here is, like all of us too, we've had conflict with teachers as well. And so I've had amazing teachers and I've had poor teachers. From the amazing ones I drew inspiration, from the poor ones I drew motivation. In other words, I'm going to prove you wrong. Yeah. I'm more than what you see. And then this one here, if any of them are bitter, it's this one. So it's it's around politics and social media.
Oh, okay.
So politics can be quite dirty. And again, I'm a city councillor, but I did run in one provincial election. And social media, when it first came out, was wonderful connections, so many things, and in so many ways now it's just a cesspool of hate. Yeah. And so that's why this one particularly is bitter. But again, one quote that I'll just mention here, and again, with anything in here, you can take it for what it is, but I see no upside in hearing a pessimist point of view. So with anything in life, there's an upside and there's a downside, and you should always be cautious. But there are people in your life that will only ever give you the downside. Mm-hmm. And try not to let those people get into your head, because they will, and they can destroy your dreams. So that's the series, and I'm actively working on number 4, and as mentioned, I still haven't touched short stories and anecdotes, but you're hearing a lot of them here now.
Yeah.
So
We'll get to those actually.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite so far? A favorite volume? Even though I think there's good knowledge.
Yeah, so I think the most fun, again, is around art, because it's such a passion of mine.
Yeah.
So the art stuff in there, here, I'll just... Again, just because I turned here, well, and I even touched on this, the difference. Photorealistic art versus impressionistic art is like a musician who does covers versus someone who creates their own music. One recreates what already exists, and the other creates something new that only previously lived in their soul. So, that's, again, a random sample.
But it's true.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Well, thank you so much for taking us around the gallery and telling us so many amazing stories.
Oh, my pleasure.
Showing us beautiful art, because this has been amazing.
Oh, my pleasure.
Hey guys, welcome back.
Before we get started, take a minute to appreciate this lighting.
Not the shadows.
Not the
lighting.
shadows. Forget about those.
This piece of hair right here, can we just cut it off?
I mean,
Do we have scissors?
just kidding.
We have plastic knives.
Oh, the life of living in a hotel in Grande Prairie.
Truthfully.
So, yesterday we went to the Grant Berg Gallery where we got some super amazing copies of his book. And so what we wanted to do is talk a little bit about the gallery, about Grant, and then maybe read bits and pieces of his book and then discuss them.
Yeah.
Not all of it because you should go buy it, but
Truthfully.
just bits and pieces. But yeah, let's talk about the gallery.
The gallery was gorgeous. I love art. Like, I'm not good at art, but I can appreciate art, and I like how it's up for, I can't really think of the right word, but it's,
Interpretation?
yeah. Like, you see a piece of art, and, like, what I see is, oh, a nice sunset. What Bridget sees, like he said, Bridget could see a sunrise, you know? Like, it's just all about perspective. But the art gallery was beautiful. Bridget was doing the interview, so the whole time I was kind of behind the camera, like, looking around at all the art. Yeah. How did you like it?
Yeah, similar to Rochelle, I think I talked about this in the interview that we did. I love art, but I am not at all talented with it. I can't draw, I can't paint, I can't sculpt, I can't do anything. Realistically, like, my instrument in the work that I do is, like,
Her
body,
face,
voice,
yeah.
that type thing. So, like, using pens and paper and, like, my hands is just not things that I'm good at. So I have mad respect for artists.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. And by that, I mean not art in itself. I mean, everyone understands art differently. So
Yeah.
it's depending on what you see. But I mean, I don't understand how people can be so good at it. Like, genuinely, it's crazy. The art that we saw yesterday was incredible. And the amount of time that these pieces took, like, it
No,
blows my
it's
mind.
insane. Even, like, he was showing a brick from an old building that kind of he sculpted. Is that the right word? Sculpted?
Yeah. Stone
And it was insane. I'm like, how do you take a brick and make it look this gorgeous? And it's, like, new and there's still, like, cement? Is that? I don't know. I don't build them.
cement.
But that was, like, insane. Or, like, his, like, trees. Like, it was, you look at it and you're like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. And then you realize that someone hand sculpted that and then needed to, like, sand it down and take all this time to do that. I'm like, that's wild. Like, he was insanely incredible. And super sweet, may I add. Like, he was just on and off the camera, just such a nice, kind guy. And, like, everything that he has, he genuinely, like, deserves because he's such, just a good person overall and such a good person, like, in the community as well for Grande Prairie, which I think but the more we talk to people, I think the more we realize how everyone is like a family here. It's so cute.
Yeah, I think it's a really amazing space for Grande Prairie to have. I think Edmonton has an art gallery. I haven't been there since I went for like a field trip, I think, in elementary school. So maybe we should go when we get
I was
back.
just thinking that. I would love to go. I've honestly been wanting to go, so
yeah,
I'm so down.
But yeah, it was a really positive space, and I feel like Grant's energy creates those positive spaces elsewhere in
100%.
Grande Prairie, and that's the vibe that I got from him, which was awesome. And I just love talking to creatives in any capacity or aspect. I love talking to creatives because, one, they always say quotable things. They always say things that they just, like, say. But they're so deep and meaningful and make me, like, question life. And I'm like, whoa, this is wild.
No, really.
But also because I feel as though they're typically usually willing to share stories, where sometimes people who maybe aren't as creative aren't used to being as vulnerable, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
Oh,
what it
that's
is. And, like,
good.
I think art and music and acting and all these different
outlets,
thank you, really, like, give people a way of already showing their vulnerability. And so when you're having a conversation with them, I feel as though they're more often willing to be vulnerable with you versus people who aren't used to having creative outlets, and then you ask them
Yeah.
a personal question and they're like, I'm not going to tell you what my something is, like, you know, but yeah, I just love talking to creatives, and the interview that we had with Grant was amazing. And it's crazy because I just think about it as like, you could go into that gallery and maybe never speak to him. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would let people just not. I feel like he'd be open and talk to you if you wanted to talk to him. But you may never know that he has his own art in his gallery. You may never know his background or the places he's been to or the things he's seen or gone through or came from. And I think that's, I mean, often with a lot of people, you never know what they came from or what they're going through. Yeah. But I don't know, it's just a whole thing in my brain of like, wow, he did that, you know? No. All the artists there did that. Mm-hmm. Such powerful stories. Oh my goodness. What a powerful way of storytelling. Art is amazing.
Yeah, truthfully. I think it was a great starter interview to kind of be brought into the GP Nation. I think it was, like, everyone in Edmonton, like, all the interviews we had back home and, like, in Fort Mac have been very sweet, like, so sweet. We're talking more about the people maybe outside of the interviews, you know? Like, I think that...
Rochelle's saying that the general public sometimes is a little iffy.
And not even maybe iffy. I think it's just more of, like, when you're from a big place, you kind of keep to yourself a lot. Mm-hmm. And I don't know who said this, but they were talking about how a lot of people just come here for work. And so the locals here know that. And so the locals are a lot more open to talk to someone, kind of lend out a helping hand because they know that they're not from here. When I feel like in Edmonton, it's very much not a tourist destination, but it's huge. So people know that, like, oh, whatever, it's Edmonton. You'll find your way around, you know?
You'll get there.
Yeah. But I think the sense of community here is, I think it's beautiful, honestly. I think it's great.
It's really touching.
Yeah.
And I was very surprised, I'm not going to lie.
Me too. You're kind of haters.
Not haters. We didn't hate. We just had never been here before, didn't know what to expect. Yeah. And then when you go from Edmonton, which is a bigger city, I'm saying this as if I know anything about geography or people. Let me just preface this with, I have no idea how big Edmonton is versus Grande Prairie. I have no idea how many people are in Edmonton versus Grande Prairie. This is just like knowledge or things people have said to me of like, oh, Grande Prairie is a small town. Oh, Edmonton's a bigger city. So this is me just talking basically out of my butt of things that random people have told me that I'm like, I'm going to roll with that. But anyway, I had a point. I think I kind of lost it. I don't know. My point was, I came with an assumption that it was a very small town, maybe a little hick, like the rest of Alberta. Not to say hick is a bad thing.
Yeah, we're from Edmonton. We know.
Yeehaw, Calgary Stampede. Everyone was there. Like
except us.
Except us. No, but I came with this assumption of what it was going to be like. Yeah. And it has been nothing like what I thought it was going to be like.
They proved us wrong in the best way possible. Like, I love this place. Honestly, I was telling Bridget, every time we go out, it's a 15-minute city, which I absolutely love. It didn't make sense to me literally at all, because, like, my brother was explaining it to me. I'm like, how is Edmonton going to do that? Like, the south side to the north side where, like, we're from is like a 30 to 40-minute drive.
In rush hour traffic.
There's no way we'll be able to do that. Even on the Anthony Henday, like, insane. And here, like, all of our stops, even on Google Maps, it said it was, like, 20 minutes away. I think it was, like, 10, 15. Like, everything is so close, which really I didn't realize how much I liked.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. Everything, like, the Starbucks is 4 minutes from here. It's great. All of our interviews have been super close. We've been at interviews and then seen other interviews that we either have done or are going to do. And we're like, wow, we know where everything is.
Yeah, it's great. Honestly, I could definitely see, like, why people would want to come here, like, and stay here. Yeah. But
10 out of 10 recommend.
Yeah, honestly.
Vacation to Grande Prairie.
And, like, I don't know, because maybe I've never been to Grande Prairie. I swear
I've never been.
I have been here before, but maybe they just, like, changed everything. Because it's, like, pretty here, too. Like, I'm not, like, kidding you. Like, I thought it was going to be, like, my family's from Bonnyville, like, my mom's side of the family.
Bonnyville represent.
Woo, woo. BV. But So I was kind of picturing something like that, like very small town. Like I think they just got a McDonald's like a couple years ago. Like they are very behind. And so I thought like coming here that was going to be the exact same thing. The buildings are so much nicer than in Edmonton, honestly. They're college. I don't know what it's called because everyone has been saying.
Northwest?
Yeah.
Northwestern.
Yeah, sure.
I think Northwest is in Edmonton. I think it's Northwestern.
Northwest is in Edmonton because I applied for that. I gave them
Perfect.
$25 and they did not email me back. So, Northwest. What's
Northwest,
up?
if you're watching this.
Just want to be an EMT. Like, let's go.
Northwestern Polytechnic. That's what
Yes,
it's called.
Polytechnic.
Very
that's
cool
what it is.
building. Man,
Such a cool building. Grant touched on it. But
the camera was off though, so you didn't get to know. I'm so sorry.
Oh my goodness, it was off. That's so
I was gonna ask him
upsetting.
to repeat everything, but I was like, that was like 10 minutes of you talking, and I felt bad, so I didn't.
Yeah. Oh, that really sucks. But
Rip.
he was explaining it, and we talked about it, and it's such a beautiful little. I didn't even know it was a college or university, whatever, Polytech, whatever you call it. I just pointed it out. I was like, that building's really cool. Like that's a sick looking building. So, you also have swans here. So random. There was a
Crazy,
bunch of there's a bunch of birds. Oh, he also touched on that.
The swans, yeah.
But not
Camera
on
was
camera. Sorry, guys. Go behind the scenes. You need to go ask him for yourself.
I was gonna say, come to Grande Prairie, go to his gallery, talk to him.
Yeah. There's also really cool mugs. I'm gonna get my mug because we don't have it. You guys, tell them the
This
story.
is not promotional.
No,
like,
it's not. Tell them the story about the airport.
The airport.
Remember, I wanted a mug.
Yeah, so we landed in the airport. I don't know if anyone's ever been to the Grande Prairie airport, but we were in the Grande Prairie airport. Rochelle really wanted a mug that said Grande Prairie with like a picture of something.
Because like
Grande
Starbucks
Prairie.
has these mugs, and there was like a Banff one, like in the Edmonton location, there was a Banff one.
Yeah, because Starbucks does the across the world line or
Yeah.
whatever, where every place you go, you can buy like Canada, Banff, Vancouver,
Yeah, it's super cute.
New York.
And I like had tea at Bridget's house one time, and now I'm kind of a tea girly, and I want to start getting cute mugs. But so yeah, I'm like, I want to get a Grande Prairie mug. Like before we knew any of this, look at this,
that. Grande Prairie, Alberta.
a mug. That's the university, and then that is the library. I don't know. Did they take it down, or is it a library now?
No, it was before. No, I thought it was before. No, art gallery. And then it broke down.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah. But
Anyway.
we got a mug, and I'm super stoked about this mug. You have no idea. I literally told him, I'm like, I was looking for a Grande Prairie mug, because I'm like, that's so fun. What the heck? So.
Also, this color looks really good on me.
No, I
I'm
was
wearing
going
Rochelle's
to say
sweater
that.
right now, but wow, I
you should
keep
get it. It was
staring
from
at
our
myself.
Dean. There's also a green one that I really want to
really?
get. Yeah.
I should get it.
It's also dishwasher
Don't.
safe.
That's not our artwork.
Oh, it's also dishwasher safe. Cut that.
Top rack dishwasher safe.
13.
That's a quality mug. I hate washing dishes.
Yeah, no, I won't get a mug if it's not dishwasher safe, to be truthful. Like, that's painful in my opinion. But
It is. Anyway, back to what we were doing. My hair looks really dark right now. A little side
It
note,
does.
but anyway. The whole point that we wanted to talk about the gallery, which we have talked about.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about how amazing Grande Prairie is. We're GP gals.
we are GP strong. Like, actually, I love this place.
I'm going to start saying I'm from Grande Prairie.
Me
instead of
too.
Edmonton.
I'm Grande Prairie. Small town girly.
Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to read a little excerpts from one of the books, all the books. I don't know. We'll decide. So, I was going to say we'll get you to vote, but there's no way for us to actually do that. So we'll just make the decision. We'll go in order. We will start with Bus Stop Philosophy, Volume 1, Life, Death, and BS. I think what we should do is each open to a random page,
Okay.
read the excerpt, and then we'll talk about it, discuss, because these are all like little thoughts and things.
Yeah, like, let me show you.
Anecdotes? Is that, no, that's a story.
So it's like you can't really read it because, no, you need to buy it yourself. But yeah, they're like little
Like quotes.
quotes.
that
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought
yeah.
of.
Little
These are all by
blurbs.
Grant. But anyway, you do want to go first?
I'm sorry. What was that?
I said, do you want to go first?
Oh, you can go first.
Okay.
Tell me when to stop, though.
Stop. Oh, do you want to...
Oh, you good. I'm on 51. What page are you on?
64.
Perfect.
Pain, when wrapped in... Oh, did I say what it is? Life, death, and BS. Yes, okay. Pain, when wrapped in a blanket of scar tissue, somehow seems more tolerable. Oof.
There's a lot to unpack there. We got the deepest one.
We started off pretty deep.
One more time.
Pain, when wrapped in a blanket of scar tissue, somehow seems more tolerable. Whoa. I just realized it's scar tissue, which is, if I'm correct in biology, scar tissue is when you've already been injured and then something heals.
Yeah.
Oh. Ow!
Correct!
So I think my interpretation of this is that when you get hurt, but since you've already been hurt, you're still hurt, but it's almost like being less hurt. That's like really,
you're kind of
really dumbed down. Like you know how to heal.
Yeah.
Like it's more tolerable because you've been maybe not in the exact situation before.
Yeah.
But you've been in a situation that's prepared you. So it's kind of like helping you be more resilient.
Ah, that's what I got from it too. You could be thinking a completely different thing, but that's what we got from it. So, the one that I have, those who don't believe in natural selection will succumb to it.
Dang, dang. PG-13 rating, dang.
I need to really think about this.
Those who don't believe
In
Does everyone know what natural selection is? By show of hands?
I use it all the time. I mean, not use it all the time. I say it all the time. I'm like, natural selection.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, how do you use natural selection? Natural selection is... Do you want to explain what it is? No? Okay.
I mean, when nature selects you, like, the thing that I usually, like, I don't think I have a PG
version of it?
Yeah.
Natural selection is basically, hypothetically, in the wild, when a lion and a gazelle are there, and the lion eats the gazelle. Like, it's natural selection, like...
Yeah. Like, it was meant to happen kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of like it's meant to happen. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right.
Or like when an animal dies of natural causes, it's natural selection.
Yeah. Or like if, this is going to be really sad, like if there's like cubs and some of the cubs don't survive natural selection.
Yeah, or like for example, when the goose, I have a goose who created a nest on our patio in like a planter pot. This is super random, but now everyone in the world will know.
If you say one of Penelope's kids didn't survive, I'll cry.
Penelope's kids survived. Okay. Penelope is the name of the goose. The goose was named. My mom named the goose. Anyway, Penelope made a nest in a planter pot we had on our balcony. And Penelope was like, when the kids were supposed to be ready to fly, she just like up and flew off the patio. Is it a patio? It's a balcony. Are those the same? The story might make more sense if it's a balcony. Anyway, it's a balcony. Penelope flew off and then was like wanting her kids to jump off our balcony, which is high. It's a 2-story balcony.
Yeah. 2-story.
Yeah, so it's quite a big drop for baby chicks that don't know how to fly. So my mom went out and put pillows. So when they fell, they didn't hit our concrete. They hit pillows, which my mom kind of got rid of the natural selection there because she put the pillows.
Your mom is so sweet. I'm going to cry. I think there's a commercial about that, like a Dawn commercial or something like that.
But if my mom hadn't put the pillows, the geese, ducklings, whateverings that died after having fallen off, it would have been natural selection. Yeah. Anyway, back to our point.
The quote. After that rant, those who don't believe in natural selection will succumb to it.
I'm wondering, the take I'm getting on this is kind of like the same, similar to like ignorance is, no, that's not it. Not ignorance is bliss. But like this idea that like, not stupid, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my goodness, I can't remember the quote. It talks about how you don't want to, like people who are not people, like things that are unintelligent, natural selection will get them because they're not smart enough to not do the thing that's going to hurt them. Does that make sense? Probably not. Kind of like a caveman. Humans had to adapt in order to survive. So natural selection gets the people who are unable to adapt, or the animals that are unable to adapt.
So I think
if you're
to dumb it down maybe a little, if you're not willing to adapt and you don't think that you can adapt or you need to adapt, you're going to succumb to that. If that makes sense, I don't know if we should cut this part and get a different quote.
No, we're going to leave it.
Perfect.
But yeah, like if you're not smart enough to know natural selection, then it's going to get you. So if you don't know the definition, look it up. I'm just kidding. It won't get you.
Bridget will.
Hate that for me. He who dies first gets the stuff named after him. Facts. That one we don't even have to talk about. Where's yours? Go ahead, read it.
When I say, I mean it.
Me too.
I don't even think that needs to be. Can I tell you something? Okay. So, this is going to sound like I'm literally like lying about this, but I swear to you I'm not. So, Bridget and I are going on a trip, and it's a road trip, and I wanted to get a book, because I'm like, I need to like know, okay, whatever. I wanted to get a book, because I'm like, it's like a 10-hour drive, and like I want to do something, you know? And she was like, oh, like I have a bunch of books you can like read, whatever. And I'm like, no, like I kind of like the poetry books, like the quote books. I don't really know if I'm like a story.
Real books.
Yeah.
For the record, I have those books as well. I'm very diverse and well educated. Thank you.
Great. I'm not, because I don't read. And then when I seen these books, I was like, that is amazing, and I need to get them. So I'm really happy that I have them, if I'm being so honest with you. And I'm now excited for the flight home because I'm a very anxious flyer. And now I have something to read. So I'm excited for that. But
I'm
volume
excited
2.
and happy for you as well.
I also think I hit my mic, so sorry about that, guys.
Volume 2, Art and More BS. Go ahead, Rochelle.
Awards, are they for the ego or to truly recognize the pinnacle of the craft?
Are they to feed the ego? Are they for the ego or to truly recognize the pinnacle of the craft? Kate, literally though, because here's my thing about award shows in general, for anything that is not numerically actually no, not numerically based, because hypothetically the numbers would not be accurate. Okay, let me get into this so I can explain.
Yeah,
I don't like award shows for art-based things. Mm-hmm. Like, unless it's a soccer game or a sports activity or something where it's like you get a point for getting the ball in the net. Like, unless it's that simple.
Oh, like cut and dry, like
cut
very
and dry,
much.
like math. You're either right or you're wrong.
Oh,
so anything
I 100%
for
agree with you.
Art or music or film, theater, anything like that, I don't think are fair, because art is always in the eye of the beholder. And just because the jury doesn't think you did the best job doesn't mean you didn't do the best job. And so I just think the awards are solely for not necessarily even the ego.
Yeah.
I would even take it a step further and say that 98% of the time it goes to, maybe it is like ego based in a sense. I would say it's going to the person who like maybe has the most press at the time, or like someone's gonna make money off of this person getting something.
Yeah.
And I could be totally wrong. You know, this is an industry I'm trying to get into, so I shouldn't be saying this right now. But I genuinely think that a lot of those awards aren't fair nor accurate. And also too, like the categories, but you know what? That's besides the point. I just think it's unfair that you are putting a numerical, like, or even a value on the work that someone's doing when it's art-based. Even, like, for Grammys, maybe, I don't actually know how the Grammys work, so I shouldn't talk, but maybe they're, like, maybe album of the year is whoever sells the most copies. But just because people liked your album the best doesn't actually mean that it's the best.
Yeah.
Not to negate, like, people's opinions and, like, if people don't like your music, that's amazing. All the power to you. Why am I talking as if anyone of that, like, stature is going to be watching this and judging my hatred on award show?
And someone might be. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But unless that, because that's probably based on the number of albums sold, but who's to say that yours was the best? Because people, I don't know, because sometimes people buy things because they love it, because they hate it, because they, you know, people make fun of things, or people just like the artist. The amount of times I've listened to songs that I haven't necessarily enjoyed, but I'm like, oh, it's by so-and-so, I love so-and-so. You know?
I am the biggest advocate for that, Post Malone. Usually all the stuff he does, I am absolutely obsessed with. But yeah, I think you're right. I think you could slap Post Malone on anything and I'd buy it. Like, I don't care what it is. I could never use it, but...
And there's nothing wrong with that. I do it too. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in regards to the awards and the things like that, I think it is far more ego than it is, like, recognition of the talent that someone has.
I think you're 100% right. I think I used to think the same way in school for, like, writing prompts and everything like that. Because I'm like, if you give someone a book, you could give literally 5 people of the utmost, like, intelligence, okay? And they read this prompt and they write something for you and everything would be different. And how are you supposed to judge that? Because literally the whole point was to get your opinion across. So I just never got that, so I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's silly.
I completely agree with that. Kind of piggybacking off of that, I even think when in English class, for example, or in any, like, artistic setting, I guess, when people put meaning on things, I think it's interesting because, sure, maybe you do know what the writer thought, maybe you do know what the artist thought or the musician, maybe you know what they're feeling if they told you, but I've been in situations before, because I dabble in writing, where I've written things.
She doesn't dabble, she writes.
I dabble.
Like, she's great.
I've been in situations where people have put meaning on the writing that I did and been like, oh, you did this because of this. I really saw that metaphor that you used. And I was like, I did it because I felt like it. I never intended for it to mean anything more than the curtains were blue, you know? So art is tricky, in my opinion.
I think even going back to art and the gallery, the first thing I noticed when I walked in was the chess board, right?
Yep.
Yeah, chess set. And you'll see in the video, it wasn't completed because, really sad, and I won't cry, but the guy unfortunately passed away. But when I saw it, and before I knew that story, I thought it was like, almost like,
like symbolism?
Yeah.
Oh, so unintentionally unfinished.
Yeah, I thought it was unfinished because it's like, shows the difference between, like, the white was pure and, like, perfectly crafted, and then you have the stone that was still rugged in, like, the darker color, and then you have the one that's kind of almost finished up and, like, presented in front of the other stone. And I thought it was just, like, I don't know, maybe, like, a metaphor of, and I guess it kind of is unintentionally, but a metaphor of some things just don't end the way you want them to, if that makes sense. Like, sometimes you don't get to finish an art piece, or sometimes you don't get to finish a sculpture, and, like, it's very sad and unfortunate that that was the case. But I think it's so beautiful because it shows me, at least, that life is very precious and you don't have all the time in the world. And you don't have, like, sometimes you don't get to finish a project, and sometimes you don't get to say bye to people, and, you know, I thought it was very beautiful. I cried. I'm going to be sober with you behind the camera. I was tearing up. But yeah, I just, you know, so it's all perspective.
Yeah, it's really touching. So, spread kindness. Tell people you love them.
Yeah. Never go to bed angry.
Never go to bed angry, as my mom always says. And I
That's
think your mom
nice.
says that too, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, I learned that from Sunday school.
As Rochelle's Sunday school teacher always used to say, never go to bed angry.
Carol. Shout out to
you,
Carol.
Carol.
Love her.
Okay, my turn. Find perspective lines that lead straight into their eyes.
Sorry, one more time. Sorry.
Find perspective lines that lead straight into their eyes. I think it's talking about, oh, do you want to go first?
No, you can go first.
I think it's talking about like seeing things from someone else's perspective.
Yeah, in like a beautiful way of putting it.
At first I was like, what? But I think I was just dumb. I think that's like looking, kind of like the quote from To Kill a Mockingbird, where it's like to know what someone's going through, you have to put on their shoes and walk around in them. Atticus Finch. Although if you're from America, that book was banned, I think, in Texas. So
Why?
because of the storyline and the way the American school system works. But it shouldn't have been banned, in my
Sorry,
opinion.
America.
But anyway,
That'd be so good.
perspective. Look at things the way other people would look at them.
The one that I have is destiny responds to your actions, not your thoughts or prayers.
I like that.
I think that's great, especially nowadays. Don't get me wrong, I love manifesting. I love praying. I do all of that. I think it does. You do need to get your hands dirty. You do need to kind of go where you want.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like Bridget, for example. She wanted to be an actress. She wanted to be an actress, so she went to Vancouver for film school. She didn't say, oh, it's going to happen here. I'm going to get discovered here. She was like, no, like, this is my dream. I've been wanting to do it. And I'm going to do it. And look at her now. On TV.
Here I am, up
With
and
me.
coming. If only there wasn't a writer's strike. I'm just kidding. Anyway, that's frick big corporations who think they deserve more money than they do.
Just so random. Just out of nowhere.
Just a little side. Well, I mentioned the writer's strike, so I'm going to
Yeah,
put that in there.
that's true.
Anyway, or for example, Rochelle, who went to school, emergency communications, finished school, and then is like, you know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to go back and be a paramedic. Now look at her, on her way.
Well, if Norquest would reply
You don't
to
need
me,
Norquest. There's so many. We'll find another school. She'll go somewhere else. Frick
I'll come
Norquest. She doesn't need
here.
that. She'll come to GP.
That'd be fun. I'd
would
love
be
to
fun.
do that.
Nice.
Honestly.
Love that for her. Anyway, yeah. Destiny doesn't... It reminds me of the quote from Brave, and I wish I could quote the writer, but I can't. If you had the chance to change your fate, would you? Kind of reminds me of that in the sense of you have the chance to change where you end up.
100%.
It's just all about the amount of work you put in, what you're willing to do, how hard you're willing to try.
Yeah.
And I think that's obviously easier said than done because sometimes external circumstances and situations arise. But you can.
I will
always
say this.
keep going.
This is so, like, not really random, but kind of. Doesn't matter how old you are. I think that is, like, as we get older, like, we're 22, so we're not, like, old yet.
We're kind
but
of old.
We're
Sorry
getting
if you're
up
older than
there.
us.
We're almost at a quarter-life crisis.
I have back pain, so.
Me
old.
too. My knees crack when I just kidding. But
My teeth fall out. I wear dentures. I'm just
these
kidding.
are not my real teeth. No, I think it's important to know that you can do anything you want anytime. Period.
Age is but a number.
Truthfully, Carol, the lady who told me never to go to bed angry, she got a tattoo at like 80.
That's
Yes! She's an icon.
Good
We
for you,
love
Carol.
Carol. But yeah, like, and that's like such like a small thing. But truthfully, like a lot of people wouldn't think like that, or older people would be like, oh no, I don't want a tattoo. Like, I'm old. Who cares? Literally, who cares? Live your life. I get older and closer to death's door.
Sorry,
And
she
I
made it so
realized-
grim.
And I
Holy.
realized how much literally I do not care. Like, if at the end of the day, like, I had this one teacher, and he was my favorite. He was like kind of like a rock star kind of vibe. Mr. Mitchell, I think his name was. Shout out to you.
Hey, Mr.
And
Mitchell.
he told me, he was like, we were talking, he's like, when you get older, I'm sure you're going to be sitting on the patio and you're going to be having some regrets. And I was like, I don't want to live my life with regrets. Like, I want to, like, be older and be like, yeah, I did this. Like, I don't want to let fear and common sense get in the way, as my dad would say. So, yeah, I've just adapted to that, and I think everyone should. Like, don't do things you don't want to do. But if there's, like, a little glimmer of, let's say, skydiving. You want to go skydiving, you're like, oh, I don't know, like, whatever. If you want to do it, go. Might as well. I don't. I hate planes.
You'll not find Rochelle
No,
skydiving.
Definitely not.
I'll go with you. Hit me up if you want to go skydiving.
Don't hit me.
My number is, just kidding.
Plug.
That's like from a Cinderella story. Don't let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game.
Yeah.
Like, do the thing you want to do, even though it might not work out. That was also, I'm pretty sure, someone's best piece of advice was to, like, I literally had it in my head. But that idea of just going for things and not living your life with regrets and not allowing yourself to kind of back away from things just out of fear.
100%.
Oh, that's what it was. You always regret the things you didn't do. You never regret the things you did.
Yeah.
That was their piece of advice.
100%.
And
100%.
that's so true. You never hear people being like, oh yeah, and then I moved to wherever and it was the worst experience of my life. It's always like, yeah, I did this amazing thing and it was awesome.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Live your best life. Do your thing. And this is, again, so much easier said than done because life is scary and things are wild. But everything is scary and everything is wild. So you just have to decide what's worth it for you.
100%.
You know?
And don't let people who may have had successes at your age ever steer you away or determine, is that the right word?
Dictate, I think you're thinking.
Maybe, yeah, dictate how you need to do something or how fast you need to do it. Because that annoys me. Because, like, as someone who, like, because I went out of high school and I originally was going to be a tattoo artist, and then I kind of realized that you need to be good at art. Like, not the best.
She's like, never mind. But who knows? Maybe one day she'll pick up a tattoo gun.
I have before, and I tattooed my palm, and it, unfortunately, anyone who has a palm tattoo knows that they go away. But anyway, no, I think it, like, as someone who went to school at, like, 22, when, like, usually people, like, my friend graduated school at 22, and I was, like, just starting school, so we graduated the same year. But I think it can be a scary feeling, and I think it can be very, like, oh, like, why didn't I do this sooner? Like, you're doing it, though. That's all that matters. Like, I don't think you should ever be like, I should have done this sooner. You should be like, I am doing this. And, like, yeah, a lot of people will be like, oh, well, at your age, I was doing this, and at your age, I did this, and this, and this. And it's like, cool, but I'm not you. And, like, truthfully, I wouldn't, like, give away the 4 years that I had outside of high school at all. Because I had a great time. I worked. I had a couple months off, like, and, like, COVID didn't affect me at all. Like, I was one of the lucky people to be able to work through COVID. I think I had probably the most money I'd had through COVID because I was working 24/7, and I loved it. I thought it was great. So, yeah, like, that might not be the dream for someone who wants to go straight out of high school and go to work or go to school and get school out of the way so they can start working, which, once again, that's a great path to take. But that's not the only path. Remember that. There's multiple paths.
And I think that's so important, too, because personally for me, going to university or college or whatever you want to call it, straight out of high school, was the best way of figuring out what I didn't want to do. And then you spend a lot of money sitting in and being in a situation where you're like,
100%.
I am not enjoying myself at all. And don't get me wrong, some people go to school right out of high school and it's amazing for them.
Yeah.
And they love it. And so I'm not, if you know what you want to do, go for it. All we're saying is if you maybe don't know what you want to do or do know what you want to do and it's not the mainstream thing that people always do, you do you, boo. Live your best life. Because life is short and there's no point in, like, regretting all these things and doing things for other people, because at the end of the day, it's you in your head with all your actions and all your decisions and all your choices. Nobody else.
Yeah.
Nobody else has any say on your life, even though it
100%.
feels like they do at times.
Yeah, like, truthfully, like, respectfully, you could be talking to someone on the streets and they could be, do this, do this, do this, and you go home and you never speak to them again. Like you had like a 30-minute interaction with them, and that should not be bringing you down and being like, I'm a failure at life. Like, and to be truthful, there's a lot of people who do go to school, like straight out of high school. And like you said, school is expensive. And they realize that they don't want to do that. And then they try and get out of school, and it's like hard for them, and they feel like they failed and they didn't succeed. And like, trust me, as someone who didn't go straight out of like high school into second or post-secondary, like it's hard not to feel that way. It's hard not to feel that you're wasting your life away and that you're like not doing anything and yada yada yada. But truthfully, like you're just waiting for a good time. And like I think if I would have went into school straight out of high school, I wouldn't be where I am right now, and I wouldn't have known that I wanted to do like dispatching and like EMT and like all this stuff. Like I literally realized that I wanted to do EMT as I was taking a course for the school. So like that's a new dream of mine. But yeah, like I don't think I'd be in the same spot I am now if
you'd gone to school.
Yeah.
And I want to say too, because this idea of needing to go to school to achieve or needing to be working to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm a random stranger who you might not know, but you are more than enough all on your own. Full stop, period, end of sentence. It is not you plus your bachelor's degree. It is not you plus the $20,000 you have in your bank account. But let's be real, who has $20,000 in their
I wish I did.
But it is not you plus anything. Like you as a human being occupying space with a heart, a mind, and a soul, like you are important and you are enough and you are incredible.
Yeah.
And never let anyone tell you different.
Truthfully.
Because I will fight them for you.
I want to kind of highlight some of the people that we talked to, but in our interviews, a lot of them haven't even had business. Like they haven't gone to school for business. And they're running these businesses.
And they're doing it well because they're still around and we're coming in to talk to them.
Truthfully, yeah.
So,
and a lot of them have like sorry to interrupt, survived COVID. So obviously, like they said, they're like, we recommend going to school, but a piece of paper at the end of the day, if you're determined, you know what you want and you know how to get it, like that's not gonna change anything, you know? Unless you're like a doctor or something like that, like maybe go to school for that, you know?
You can always go to school. I personally believe education is always a great thing. So even sometimes when you're in school and you don't particularly enjoy what you're doing, it'll still be beneficial in the long run.
Yeah.
All we're saying is you don't have to suffer through school that you absolutely hate just for a piece of paper. Because like it was said, in a lot of situations, you don't necessarily need a bachelor's degree or a business degree or a XYZ degree. Yeah. Like there's a lot of jobs where hard work will get you a lot of the way.
100%. I'm going to use my sister as an example. So she was in school when I was in school, and we'd come home and she hated talking about her day. Like my parents would ask her and she'd like go mute and be like, I don't want to talk about it. Then they'd ask me and I'm like, I had so much fun. I learned this, this, and this. Like I enjoyed my schooling because I enjoyed, like that's the reason why I picked it. I liked what I was going to do. I liked the career I was in. And she like left school in the like after first semester, and she like told me, she was like, I want to leave school. And it was very emotional for her. And she's like, I just realized because you came home and you were so happy all the time. And like I came home and I was miserable and like crying myself to sleep. And she's like, I didn't want that. And I'm like, I'm glad that you were able to, because that's hard. Like it's hard. And you think that even if your parents are not going to react the way you thought they were going to react and be like, you're such a disappointment, blah, blah, blah. It's a scary thing to share. And like, I know that her sharing, I could tell that she was scared and didn't want to seem like a disappointment. And my parents would never think that or say that. Like my parents got very lucky. But yeah, I think it's definitely, like we've been saying, easier said than done. But I think it's important for you to listen to yourself. Because like at the end of the day, like this is sad, but your parents are not going to be there. Your friends, they can come and go. All you have, truthfully, like really is yourself. And so if you're not making yourself happy, no one else will.
You're the only permanent in your life. Like what she said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I'm going to read my next one because I have another one. True art isn't what you see, rather it's what you feel. And I completely agree with that. I
think we touched on that.
Yeah, art is all about feeling, not like view is up to interpretation. But wait, are you still in the second book?
No, I think I moved on to the
Okay,
third. but
we're
we can
now
do-
on the third.
Oh, okay, we're on the third.
Volume 3, Politics, Social Media, and Still More BS.
So the one that I have, Twitter, a world where the weak overstate their power to themselves. I literally, like, I could tell that this one, as soon as you said politics and social media, and I've kind of been flipping through it, and I literally, like, but it's
My hair was
true.
over my mic, yoinks. I hope that didn't mess up anything. Continue, sorry.
I don't think so, because I've been looking at the green, and it's been looking fine.
Perfect.
But,
That's hilarious.
I think mic drop, I don't think we need to go into that. I know we've been going into everything, but 100%. The internet is fake. Everyone's a lie on the internet, let's be real. Like, there's no one living 110% truthfully their life, because you've never seen them unedited, you've never seen them...
It's someone's highlight reel, not their day-to-day.
100%.
And just because it's said on the internet doesn't mean it's true.
Unless you're watching us.
You don't,
everything's
unless
true.
it's us. If it's us, then it is 100% accurate, and we are the smartest people ever.
Yeah.
You don't need a bachelor's degree to post on the internet. Remember that. You don't have to be educated at all in any subject to say your opinion.
Yes.
So take it with a grain of salt.
And you need to remember that Twitter and TikTok are basically the exact same thing. So all the stupid stuff that you see on TikTok is probably happening in Twitter too. And like you would look
And
at a
Instagram
TikTok,
and Facebook,
yeah. So you see something, you're like, oh, that's fake. Just because you read it doesn't mean it's real, if that makes sense. So
Words can also be fake. I think that's kind of what you're getting into.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Videos, you know that videos can be fake, and in your brain it makes sense that videos and pictures can be edited.
yeah,
Words are the same way.
I think it's very hard. Like me too. I like read something, I'm like, oh, that's so true. I'm like, it's on the internet. Let me do some digging.
Do some research.
Yeah.
And remember, everything's permanent on the internet, and people just, I don't know. I don't
Be
like the
cautious,
internet.
yeah.
Be careful.
Be
Be
careful.
cautious.
Not everything. Some things you should keep to yourself. And not just nasty things, but like successes. Like not everyone needs to know that you made this milestone. And don't get me wrong, I think you should definitely share it. And if you're proud of yourself, 100% do that. But make sure you share it with your real friends in person
Yeah.
and not like online.
Remember that the online world is just that. Like, it's only online. It's you don't eat, sleep, and breathe it. It's
Yeah.
something you have to go to. Your real life, the friends you see in person, the things you do,
Yeah, we're coworkers.
your laughter, your... Okay, road
get
trip
it.
canceled. No, but all these things that you see online, just because everyone else is living online doesn't mean you have to. Okay? Just...
Me, for example, I am
She's really never online.
offline. Like, don't post
there.
nothing. And I think, like, don't get me wrong, I think it's fun to post, and I love, like, when Bridget and, like, my other friends post. Like, I think it's so fun. It's just, like, not for me, you know? Like, I personally don't find it for my career and where I want my life to go that I need it. But, like, my one friend, she posts, she's gorgeous, love her. She posts because she, like, loves taking photos and she's very artsy. Same with Bridget. Bridget needs to build that clientele. Like, Bridget needs that.
Not clientele.
Not clientele. Like,
Platform.
platform. Yeah.
No clients. Do not contact me, clients. No client work. Thank
You're going to
you.
get people being like, hi, do you do, like, hair, like, lashes? Like, what do you do?
Like, I do talking and
if you need
accents.
playwright, though.
If you need a playwright, hit me up.
Right there.
Or screenplay. I'm trying to get into those.
If you need CPR.
Hit her up.
Right.
Do not contact me for CPR, please. Please don't contact. Actually, if you need CPR, you should probably call 911.
Which is me. Like, literally, you're going to be talking to me.
You will be, yes. But, oh yeah. For some reason, my brain was like, no, don't call Rochelle's phone number.
No, not my phone number.
911.
Call 911, but you will be talking to me.
She will be there. Okay, my turn. Anyone smart enough for politics is smart enough not to get into politics.
You're not wrong.
I mean...
It's so funny, too, because he's on, like, the council. So
he
he
said
knows.
these ones were
Yeah.
funny, and there's a lot of jokes and stuff in
There
here.
is a lot of...
I agree with that because I personally think my older sister would be the best president
Yeah,
of the world.
me
Not
too.
even like Prime Minister of Canada, like literally president of the world, because she's one of the only people who's actually diverse and well educated in a lot of stuff. And I think
Yeah.
the things she thinks, she could make the world a better place. But
I your sister could literally tell me anything and I'd believe it. Like, your sister would be like, okay, like, do a handstand right now. Or you're like, actually, like, an alien's going to come down. I'm like, you're right. I'm doing a handstand. Like, I would put my whole life in her hands.
You said, literally.
100%.
I feel that. What's your next one?
There's one about Trump. You know what? Let's do it. Should we? I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I won't do that.
What is it? I want to read it, though. That's hilarious. But
Right?
I don't think we should.
No, we're not getting too political. You're going to need to read that yourself.
You should buy it, though. That was funny.
Yeah. What is this?
It's just politics.
Oh.
Sorry about this.
No, we're...
Rochelle can't follow
I
the
really
rules and just flip to a
I
page.
really
and
can't.
then
I've
on.
been trying to. Oof. They're all kind of going off like Twitter, and I kind of love that, but I'm going to try and find something that isn't. Oof. This one's good. Social media, the Trojan horse of our time.
I turned to that one, too. That one's really good.
That one is really good.
Because, does anyone know the story of the Trojan horse by a show of hands?
I don't know who was involved, but I know what it is.
What is the Trojan horse?
There was a battle happening. One of the people were like, let's make a plan. We're going to make this horse. We're going to hide men in this horse and say it's a peace offering. The opposing team, whatever it is.
You're definitely right. Treating it like a dodgeball game.
I love that. We're like, yeah, we'll take your peace offering. Brought it into their little area. And then the men came out and I think killed them all, and they actually ended up winning the war. So
Social media is the Trojan horse of our time. It's the thing that you think is a gift and amazing, but it's the thing that could kill you. Boom. Which is sad, but true. Just remember, like, as we said, anyone can post anything on the internet. So if people are telling you to eat Tide Pods, maybe don't. Maybe Google it and see what'll happen before you do the thing. Okay?
or like I've been seeing on TikTok, people eating borax. And if you don't know what borax is, it's literally powdered bleach. Don't do that.
The thing that has the skull and crossbones
Yeah.
on. Did no one take Wimmis? I'm sorry.
Wimmis. I love that. Yeah, no.
Be cautious, be careful, and remember you're looking at other people's edited highlight reels, not their day-to-day life. And maybe it'd be easier. Actually, no, I think it'd be worse if people posted their day-to-day life, because then people are just relying on technology so much more. And now with AI, like,
That's scary. That's
it's
another
really
reason.
upsetting, you know?
It really is, especially like what they're able to do, and like
Every
ew.
robot movie ever has taught us why this is a bad idea, and yet here we are.
Same with like them trying to bring back dinosaurs. I'm sorry. There's like 5 Jurassic Parks. Let's be so for real right now. Who thought that was a good idea? Or the mammoth meatball. Have you heard of that?
No.
So you know like a woolly mammoth? Mm-hmm. So they're like making one.
A mammoth?
Yeah. They're like, I think it was like a Chinese elephant. They are taking the DNA from that and like mixing it with the DNA that they have. They're trying to make a woolly mammoth. But they made a meatball out of woolly mammoth meat, like lab grown, and everyone is terrified to eat it. Like no one will touch this meatball. Truthfully, put it in a meatball.
We'll munch. We'll do a food review of that for you. That's funny.
Yeah, no, but that's a thing. So that's scary.
Terrifying. Oh, I like both of these.
Read them both.
I'm just going to read them both. What if we are the virus and COVID-19 is the vaccine? Embarrassing, because, like, you know, we were killing the entire planet, and then as soon as COVID happened and we stopped polluting the environment,
I think about that often.
things got so much better.
Like the Vatican, how the water was like clear and there was dolphins there.
That's Venice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This Vatican, I don't know.
I don't know geography.
Don't know. Sorry, guys.
Anyway, dolphins, clear water, things weren't dying everywhere. It was really great.
Mm-hmm. The air quality in Japan was like the best they've ever seen in like a hot
Crazy.
minute.
Till humans come along and ruin everything. This is my third, but I'm just going to read that.
Yeah, go
because
ahead.
I like it. The next page in your autobiography is blank. Make it exciting and compelling. Boom.
Facts.
Boom.
And I will say this, money is temporary.
Moments are forever.
Yes. That was because there's a concert coming up, and I'm like, should I spend this much on this concert? And I think I should.
I always think
But-
it's crazy because money, as much as you don't think it'll come and go, it really comes and goes. You know?
Your bank account goes up and down.
Everything fluctuates. Feelings, money, weather,
Yeah.
everything. Might as well live your best life while you can.
I always think about when we went to the Post Malone concert, and literally that was the best time of my entire life.
I think we talked about it in our first video,
Yeah.
but we last minute, 2 weeks before, booked a trip to Los Angeles to go see Post Malone.
And like last minute, like as heck too, like we didn't have passports. We had like absolutely nothing.
We had no time.
And yeah, we made it happen. And the best thing ever, I don't know, I know how much the tickets were, but I don't know how much I spent on that trip at all. And
Neither
I
do
do
I.
not care.
And it
I
does
would do
not
it
affect
100%
us
again.
to this day. So
The only thing that affects me is I'm really sad that I'm not there right now, but it's fine.
but we saw Post Malone.
We touched Post Malone. Like, I don't, like, wow. Sway Lee called me,
Something we can't say
Yeah.
on BT.
called me basically amazing.
Basically. It's synonymous.
Yeah. Whatever. We're like cool like that. Whatever.
Okay, Rochelle, leave us with a good last one.
This one's really good, and this one is, I think, perfectly sums up how Bridget and I feel. The world is run by insecure men when it should be run by compassionate women.
Facts. Who runs the world? Should be girls.
Beyonce has been saying it.
Men have started more wars. Men have started all the wars. Because you know
Actually.
why? Men are aggressive. I'm just kidding. Not all men suck, but some
No.
do. Some women also suck,
Yeah.
but
Not these ones.
no. Women also, I feel like, just always have more compassion.
I think
And
that's what the
I
world
think
needs.
it's actually a thing where women think before they act, whereas men are far more likely to just act.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of problems happen. You gotta think before you do stuff.
100%. Even if, like, people listen to the First Ladies, like, I'm sure they would help them out a bit. Like, maybe
More
that's
to
not a
share.
great idea.
You know?
But, yeah. Kind of just to wrap everything up. Grant, you were amazing first interview. Everyone in GP has been
Incredible.
incredible,
Thank you, Grant
amazing.
Berg.
This has been an amazing experience, honestly. I love it here. Literally love it here. These books are amazing. I'm super excited, like I said, to read the politics and social media, because that just, like, I was skimming through the book and literally, like, everything that we've been saying or I've been thinking has been in this book. I definitely think you should definitely stop by. He doesn't sell, he only sells in his art gallery. So you're going to need to go look around, say what's up. He's super nice, loves to talk. He was in radio for a hot minute.
for 29
Broadcasting,
years.
yeah. So, yeah, I think he's definitely someone you should stop by. All of the people we've been seeing, honestly, have been so nice, and definitely stop by. You can, like, 1414 Food Co. Literally, like, 2-second walk.
That won't have aired when we air this episode,
Right.
so we'll talk more about all the other amazing
Exactly.
places
Oh,
we
yeah,
get to in another episode.
I forgot about that, yeah.
That's okay.
A
But
little sneak peek.
A little sneak peek. But when those episodes air, we'll be sure to talk about
Yes,
them.
100%. But
Grant Berg Gallery, Grande Prairie, BC.
Oh.
Alberta, Grande Prairie, Alberta. That was so
GP.
embarrassing for me. We hope you enjoyed our snippets of the books.
Yeah.
If you want more, which I know you will, go to the gallery, get your copy, give them a read.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks everyone.